Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park 24 baseball playthrough of the New York Yankees. And just want to start by saying thank you for everyone who's watching. We've really seen a good amount of subscriber growth over the last month and a half since we started putting out preview content for OOTP 24 and then started playing the game. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, would really appreciate it if you did. Help us grow the channel, and our goal is to get to 1,000 subscribers before the end of this year. We're at 800 now, so I'm cautiously optimistic I'll get there. And thank you for viewing our videos. So we've simmed a couple of weeks, probably actually closer to 3+ weeks since the end of our last episode, which was at the start of free agency, and quite honestly, not too much has happened. We've simmed through the winter meetings, and we've got the Rule 5 draft coming up tomorrow, but we haven't really done all that much. We've made a few trades to bolster the left-handers out of our pen. We got Taylor Rogers from Milwaukee, and I think this could be a real interesting trade. He's making $12 million this year, but the Giants had retained all of his contract when they traded him to the Brewers, traded him back to the Brewers last year. So he didn't have that great a season, but with Jalen Beeks leaving, not wanting to re-sign with us because he doesn't get along with Aaron Boone, basically left us with one lefty in the bullpen in Joe Mantiply. So we thought that Rogers would be a real interesting guy for us to pick up as a team that's trying to win this year. Had to give up a lot to bring him on board. Minor league third baseman Marcos Cabrera, B.J. Murray Jr., a first baseman who's a decent prospect. Pitching prospect Grant Smith, an 18-year-old. Maybe he develops into something. Cornerstone of the deal was probably the 21-year-old starting pitching prospect Sean Herman. And then we also had to give up minor league reliever Brendan Beck. So no frontline prospects, but still a pretty rich package of prospects to bring him on board. And then we made another move that's kind of odd, I think. We ended up buying James Outman out of his 4 arbitration years based on the timing of when he came up. He was going to be arbitration eligible for 4 years, as well as his first year of free agency. He was basically a utility outfielder for us this year, and with the fact that we've got Jason Dominguez, who will be up with us next year, the biggest role that he's going to have for us the next few years is a 4th or 5th outfielder. But we like his ability to play every position defensively. He's got a little bit of base running and stealing expertise. He's a left-handed bat, which is always nice in Yankee Stadium, particularly if they have a little home run power. So as I said, we bought out arbitration years and 1 free agent year, and it's not such a big contract that we can't get rid of him if we need to. But the big reason I did that is that first base is our big hole as we head into this offseason. But I'm thinking that we should move Austin Wells to first base, which would still leave us with Stanton, Bellinger, and Judge as likely starting outfielders, assuming that they're healthy. But Jason Dominguez is probably going to be in the mix to give Stanton and Judge some time at DH, and then still have Outman as the 5th outfielder. So we've got 5 major league outfielders, and Wells is 6'2". He doesn't have great infield ratings, but he's the reigning rookie of the year, really nice bat, and he's a lot more cost-effective, obviously, and has more upside than just about anyone who's available on the free agent market. So doesn't mean we're ruling out making a big move for a first baseman, but I am being a little more circumspect in my thoughts about spending a lot of money on a free agent first baseman. And to that point, I will check in. 3/4 Badger mentioned chasing after Goldschmidt if we can get him for a good deal. And I do agree with that, but you can see right now he's still looking for $23.5 million. 37 years old, still a really nice bat, but you do look at the OPSs over the last 3 seasons, and he's gone from 981 to 908 to 814. His WARs, his OPS pluses, his WRC pluses, all kind of heading in the direction that you'd expect for a 37-year-old player. And he's still looking. He has taken the demand down to 2 years, but $25.6 million a year is a lot. Now we could certainly open up that amount of money to bring him on board. We've only got $20 million right now, but I have bumped up scouting and player development a little bit since our last episode. Could certainly take those down a bit. But over $25 million for Goldschmidt, even if it's only a 2-year deal, still seems a little high to me. If he's lingering on the market a month from now, could we go back in that direction? Definitely, but I don't think it's the right move for us right now. And we did make one other trade just a day ago as we got ready for the Rule 5 draft. We wanted to clear off a few players that we likely were not going to protect in the Rule 5 draft, so we were only able to execute one trade, but we tried to do others, and we added a third lefty to our pen. Dylan Lee, 30-year-old pitcher, was an all-star in 2023. Had an even better year, at least in terms of his ERA and his WAR in 2024 with the Braves. Certainly, with Lee, Mantiply, and now Rogers, feel like we've got 3 really nice left-handed arms out of the pen now. Lee was in a way a little more costly because he's in his final season making the major league minimum, and then he's going to be headed to arbitration where his price will go up, whereas Rogers is a free agent after this year. We had to give up Xavier Fernandez, who's been a backup catcher for us, center fielder Madison Santos, who's not much of a prospect, but Juan Corella, a 23-year-old starting pitching prospect. 3 really good pitches, above average stuff, pretty good movement. I didn't love him because of the lack of control, and he's someone who's kind of been stuck in high A ball for us the last 2 years since I took over. He did improve a lot this year. Would assume he's going to be starting next year in Double A, but we are trying to win right now, so I didn't mind giving him up to bring Dylan Lee on board. He's at the point where we would have had to put him onto the 40-man roster to protect him from the Rule 5 anyways. Not that that's the end of the world. We've got room on the 40-man roster, but figured I would get somebody who could help us right now in the trade for Dylan Lee. So that's kind of what we've done thus far since the last episode. The one thing that I was also going to check on, and this was also based on a comment from viewer Patrick DeBonis, was checking in on what we could possibly get for Garrett Cole in a trade. I was a little bummed that he opted into the last 4 years of his contract at $36 million a year. I thought that the fact that he just won a Cy Young Award, led the league in ERA and WHIP, and until a late season injury looked like a real good candidate to win the pitching Triple Crown, ended up tied for second in wins and second in the league in strikeouts. Thought he might opt out. I don't know that I really want to trade him, because as much as I think those age 36 and 37 seasons could be pretty painful for us at $36 million a year, he's still obviously right now one of the top pitchers in baseball, and we are a team that's made 2 consecutive American League Championship Series. So it would be a big hole on the roster for us to fill if we moved on from him. But at least going to see what's out there, shopping him around, retaining none of his contract. And nobody offers anything. So there's our answer right there. If we retain 50%, and I don't think I would retain that much, then there's a lot of offers out there at 50%. You can see everybody's offering us something for him if we'll keep half of his contract. And there's pretty decent players like Raffy Devers from the Red Sox would be a pretty nice bat for us at third base. Dansby Swanson. So there's definitely some interest in him, but if we're still going to be paying $18 million of his contract, that only leaves us with $18 million to try to replace him. So there's interesting names out there, but if we could get something where we'd only have to retain 20% of his contract, that could be more interesting. And we can bring Jacob deGrom or Shane Bieber on board with huge contracts. But other than that, this is a less impressive crew than the last one in terms of the value. Josh Young, decent player, but I don't feel that desperate to get out of Cole's contract. So I think for the time being, we're just going to hang on to it, see if we can squeeze another good season out of him, try to maybe win the World Series, and then if we have to move on from him at some point over the next season or two, probably not going to get as much as we could get today when he's coming off of a Cy Young award, but those are the decisions we have to make as a pretend general manager. So if we do end up keeping Wells at first base, with the additions of Lee and Rogers into our bullpen, I feel like our pitching staff is kind of built at this point. And honestly, if we keep Wells at first base, we kind of got a pretty good roster that I like. Doesn't mean we're not going to do anything for the rest of the offseason. We've got the Rule 5 coming up tomorrow. And I think a potential upgrade at catcher is something for us to think about. Not that we don't love Jose Trevino, and he'll almost certainly be our starter next year, but we did start talking extension with him. And he's looking for about $24 million a year for 5 years, which for a guy who's going to be 33 next season when this would kick in, is getting kind of expensive. I love his great defense. I love the captain personality. I love what he brings to the clubhouse. And if he can have a 91 OPS plus or an 87 WRC plus that he's put up 2 of the last 3 years, he's an incredibly valuable player. But I don't know that I want to be spending $25 million a year on him. And we may be moving on from Miguel Amaya as the backup catcher. He does, now that we've kept him after picking him in the Rule 5 draft, kept him up all year, he does have an option year left. So we could certainly upgrade at backup catcher or maybe make a trade for someone to kind of be a co-number one with Trevino and his potential replacement when he's potentially gone next year. So that's another area I'm going to kick the tires on players with over the next month or two. Maybe nothing will come of it. Maybe something will. So still got to decide what to do at first base. Still got to decide if we're going to maybe pick up a catcher. And then other than that, if there's any great value in the Rule 5 draft, or if a month and a half from now there's some good players at bargain levels on the free agent market, then maybe that's something we'll get involved in. And after having the best record in baseball, we're picking last in the Rule 5 draft. Our arch rival Red Sox couldn't be more different. They've got the number 1 pick in the Rule 5 draft after a pretty rough 57-105 season last year. And I've got an idea what I want to do here in the first round 30th pick of the Rule 5 draft, but we'll take a look and see what our scouting director recommends. And you may remember from a couple episodes ago that our longtime scouting director retired at the end of the season, so that's why we've got such mediocre scouting accuracy on a lot of people. We needed to kind of start that process all over with a new scouting director. But he's recommending we go with Hayden Wesneski, the pitcher from the Cubs. Pretty decent profile. He's coming off of a torn flexor tendon in his elbow, going to be out another 2 to 3 weeks, but did have a 2.25 ERA over 40 innings. A guy who could start and could relieve. Unfortunately, we do have that low scouting accuracy on him. but certainly is a player who I would think about bringing in. But there's a couple others that I think are interesting as well. The three most interesting to me, other than Wisniewski, are Jorge Barrosa. You may remember that name because we picked him in the Rule 5 draft a year ago, and we ended up cutting him and sending him back to the Cubs right at the end of spring training. You can see he got a lot more seasoning. He had hit 276 in Double A in 2022. 326 in Double A and then 276 in Triple A before we picked him up. Last year spent the whole season in Triple A, hit 258, 18 homers down there. He's much more close to fully developed than he was. Good personality in the clubhouse, decent offensive player and a decent defensive player as well. So he's still interesting. Given that we're looking for a backup catcher potentially, Will Banfield is also pretty interesting. Don't love the bat. He did hit 364 in a very small sample size in AAA last year after hitting 300 in AA. But his batting profile certainly suggests that that is a bit of an aberration, but really like his glove with the 60 catcher ability and the 70 catcher arm. And then the most intriguing guy to us is probably the one who's most or least likely to make our team, but probably most likely to be eventually a big-time player, and that's Edinson Paulino out of the Red Sox organization. 22-year-old second baseman, versatility to play just about anywhere in the infield, at least second, third, and short. Has a little bit of speed, decent at stealing bases, and a bat that looks like it could be close to major league average. He's only made it to Double A, where he hit 260 and 173 at bats last year. But for a sixth infielder, he could definitely be in the mix with Nick Maton for kind of that final infield spot on our team. So I'm kind of intrigued by him as well. And I can't help myself if there's a way where we can maybe help our roster while also hurting the Red Sox organization. We have to try to do it. So we're going to bring in Edinson Paulino here in the first round of the Rule 5 draft. Definitely no guarantee that he's even going to make our 26-man roster, but we'd like to give ourselves the optionality to do that. Going ahead into the second round, Wisniewski is still there. I think we'll take a flyer on him here in the second round, see how he recovers from that injury. Third round, scouting director still recommends that we pick a player. He says Wilfred Estudio. Just not as good defensively as the other catcher, although a bit more interesting bat. But I think I'm going to stick with the catcher. I am going to overrule him and go with Will Banfield here in the third round of the Rule 5 just to bring him on, see if maybe he can become something. And then question is whether we want to do anything in the fourth round. Our scout still recommends we go with Estudio. I don't see any real need to do that. And unfortunately, the outfielder who we picked in the Rule 5 draft last year looks like he's gone now. So I think we will call it a draft. 3 players pick, though, and who knows? There's a chance that some of them will stick. Actually, it looks like the outfielder wasn't picked. He somehow disappeared, or maybe I was just totally missing him on that screen there. I think it was unlikely that he would make our team, but I feel like he was not there. It's too late. Oh, he's right there, Jorge Barrosa. My vision is getting very bad, apparently. Too late to draft him now. As I mentioned, we had picked him in the Rule 5 last year and he didn't make the team. I think with the fact that we have signed Outman to that contract, unless we had injuries, there's probably not a realistic path to Barrosa making the team this year. But if for some reason my eyesight hadn't missed what was standing right in front of me, would have picked him in the fourth round. But it is what it is at this point. And the fans are upset that Jalen Beeks has signed away from us. As we mentioned, he would not re-sign with us because he didn't like playing with or playing for Aaron Boone. Looks like the Guardians gave him over $10 million a year to be their lefty closer for the next 2 seasons. Certainly feel like we're going to miss him, but hopefully bringing on Rogers and Lee as left-handers to replace him for a lot more money works out from us because just didn't have the option. He wasn't going to sign with us unless we moved on from Aaron Boone, and that wasn't really something I was considering doing right now. And that did give us a little hit to fan interest, down to 98. Still very strong. You can see we're on pace to sell about 2,000 more season tickets than a year ago after we dropped the prices just a bit. And looking now back at Goldschmidt, and still looking for 2 years, 25.6 a year. Says he's got an offer from the Diamondbacks. I would love that bat in the middle of our lineup. It would really turn the Yankees into a veritable murderer's row with, assuming he's healthy, Stanton, assuming he's healthy, Judge. We'd have the reigning Rookie of the Year in Wells. Peraza's got a big bat at this point. Jason Dominguez is a young guy with a lot of potential. Haven't even talked about Anthony Volpe yet. And then adding Paul Goldschmidt into the mix would be really interesting. But I'm going to try to do it as cheaply as possible. I am going to put an offer out there to him, but it's probably not an offer that he's even going to go for. We'll offer him $18 million this year and $24 million next season, but it's going to be a team option for next season. So it's really a 1-year deal that guarantees him $20.4 million. He's probably not even going to consider it. No, he wants $26 a year for 2 years. I'm not going to push it quite yet. There is another guy out on the market that I'm interested in, Yoan Moncada. Think he could play third or potentially become a first baseman for us. Like that he's a switch hitter. Not incredibly productive last year, hitting just .234 with 14 homers for the White Sox, but clearly looking for a lot less money. But with Moncada, Rizzo, and Goldschmidt all still on the market, I also don't feel like I really have to chase for anybody right now. So we may just keep waiting, and you probably noticed this. I didn't mention this at the start of the episode, but in our effort to find a potential backup catcher, we also made an offer to our former backup catcher and starting catcher at some points with the Yankees. Higgy, thought he could be pretty good defensively. Don't think we've offered him any crazy amount that we can't get him off the books if we need to down the line. I just want to have as many options as possible, and bringing him on board at $1.2 million a year average for 3 seasons would certainly not preclude us from making a trade for a bigger time catcher and just moving on from him. And unfortunately, Goldschmidt is off the market. Looks like he basically got closer to what he was looking for, almost $24 million a year for 2 years from the Diamondbacks. So he leaves St. Louis, and he's going to be with Arizona now. That's back with Arizona. That's what I thought. So back where it all began for Mr. Goldschmidt. And we've also got the International Amateur Free Agency signing period coming up in about 2+ weeks. So we just put in an order to our scout to sign it, try to scout everybody that's available once again. Don't know what we'll end up doing in International Amateur Free Agency, but hopefully the fact that we lost our scout after we had already done 2 trips to international amateur free agency won't end up costing us too much when all is said and done. And we did get Higgy signed as our potential backup catcher, and you can see we've been scouting a lot of those international amateur free agents over the last week or so. Hopefully get better reports on them. So that will definitely potentially put us in a situation where Miguel Amaya could be in the minor leagues next year. We had to keep him on the roster all year this year because we picked him in the Rule 5, but now we do have a little bit more optionality from that perspective. Clearly Trevino is still the starter, but with Amaya, Banfield, who we just picked in this year's Rule 5 draft, and Higgy on board, feel like we've got some interesting options to potentially be the backup to Trevino next year. Taking a look at the depth chart, it looks like, at least according to Aaron Boone, Banfield and Amaya would be the 2 that he would go for before Higgy. And you may also remember I've desperately been trying to get out from under Giancarlo Stanton's contract, but he's still not willing to waive his no-trade clause. So I think that that's why when we try to shop him around, even if we keep excessive percentages, nobody's offering anything for him because he's not willing to offer. He's not willing to waive his 10-5 rights yet. So maybe in spring training there'll be an opportunity to get out from under that contract. Would certainly love to if we could, given that he's basically missed the playoffs each of the last 2 years for us. And you can see this past season he only played in 34 games before he got hurt. He's still only fragile as far as his injury proneness, but it's not going to shock me if when he finally recovers in about 6 weeks from that ruptured MCL that his injury proneness is down to wrecked, and he's got no range left in the outfield. He's basically just a extremely one-dimensional slugger at this point that I would prefer not to be paying $32 million a year to. And we just ran our final practice for international amateur free agents. We've got a little over a week until the signing period opens. And you can see we've now got stronger, very strong relationships with all 10 of the guys that we had in camp. We've got a mix of higher-priced players, one of whom we can probably get, and then we're hoping to maybe layer in a couple of guys looking for less money. We'll see what the scouting reports on everybody look like when we do get to that signing period in about a week. But the goal is to sign, one of these bigger players who's making or going to likely sign for between $2 to $3 million. And then hopefully supplement in at least 1 or 2 other players not making quite as much money. And since I haven't made a big splash in free agency, I am starting to think that we may throw an offer out to Walker Buehler. He hasn't pitched in the major leagues since 2022. He had, if I could click properly and look at his injury history, torn UCL that kept him out in 2023, and then he tore his labrum in spring training next year. But we do have an updated scouting report on him that's very high accuracy, and he's healthy now. Still plus stuff, plus movement, really good control. 5-pitch arsenal led by an above-average fastball and an above-average cutter. Still has the stamina to start, still a good personality in the clubhouse. Looking for $10.6 million, so not crazy money. I really like our top 4. I really like our top 3 with Cole, Rodon, and Severino. Cortez right now is our 4th, and then Jameson is our 5th starter. I feel like Buehler probably would slot in if the profile is what this looks like ahead of Nestor Cortez, which would allow us to then potentially move Dre Jameson into a relief role. We've also got Yendrys Gomez, who could potentially start for us down the line. So it's definitely a luxury item to be even thinking about bringing him on board. And honestly, his salary demands haven't come down at all, even though he's now been on the market for well over a month. But I'm going to at least have a discussion with him at this point. Oh, and forget that. His Ferris Bueller, similar to the recently departed Jalen Beeks, doesn't want to play with Aaron Boone. So that makes it an easy decision. If we're going to spend some money, we're going to spend it somewhere else. And as I mentioned, we've got some pretty good relationships with some of the top prospects out there. Right now, among the big money guys, we've got a very strong relationship with Juan Padilla. Now, league interest in him is also very high, but we've got high scouting accuracy on him. And he certainly looks like he can be a very good major league bat. So we're going to put an offer out to Padilla. He's looking for $2.8 million. He claims he really likes our organization and would love to come play for us. So I'm just going to meet the demand, get the offer out there, and see where that goes. I have a feeling if we're going to ultimately land him, we're going to have to make it higher than the $2.8 million. But that does leave us with $1.95 million to kind of put out there on other players right now. We've got a few pitchers that have been scouted pretty well. We've got a very strong relationship with Alexis Morello, $1.8 million demand. If that changeup doesn't develop, he's a excellent relief pitcher, but not a starting pitcher. Also doesn't have the most perfect personality in the world. That said, he's an 18-year-old already throwing in the low to mid-90s, so he's an interesting prospect. But I don't think we're going to chase him right now. I think we're going to make an offer to another batter with the money that we've got left. And Jorge Valladares is a bit of a shot in the dark. We do have a strong relationship with him. Supposedly there's only average demand. Supposedly he's also only looking for $950,000, but plus contact, plus home run power potentially, really good gap power, and enough speed to make it work for him. Not going to draw a ton of walks, which isn't great, but he's also not looking for tons of money, and there may not be as many people looking for him. So we're going to get an offer out there to Valladares as well. We're not going to quite hit his number, see what he thinks with an $800,000 offer, and he's willing to at least think about it. So that gives us a second offer out there. And now we're going to go bargain shopping a little bit. We've got a strong relationship with catcher Frank Ramos, very low league interest, only looking for $160,000. I don't think the bat is ever going to develop to a major league level, but we do have good coaching in our minor league system. Maybe there's some potential there that we don't know about. We do only have average scouting accuracy on him. OSA's got low accuracy on him, but he's potentially a really good defensive catcher. He's durable, and he's not looking for a ton of money. So we're just going to throw out an even smaller offer to him of $100,000. See what he thinks of that. It's a little lower, but he's already come down to $140,000. If we offer him $130,000, he's willing to think about it. So we'll get that out there. And then last but not least, we are going to talk to a pitcher. And Juan Rogel is definitely a potential reliever, but he is a reliever with a potentially plus fastball and splitter, which could be, well above average stuff, above average control, decent movement. He's only 16 years old, and he's not looking for a ton of money. We've got a very strong relationship with him, average league interest, and we've got high scouting accuracy on him. Again, not the most exciting prospect in the world, but we're going to see if we can pick him up with a $150,000 offer. and he's willing to think about it. So we've got 4 offers out there now on international amateur free agents. Still got $870,000 left to spend. As I talked about earlier, I do think that ultimately we're going to need to put more money into Padilla to get him. It would be great if we could get him for the 2.8 that we've offered. I don't think that's going to happen. But we'll kind of find out what happens with him, hopefully, in some of the other offers over the next week or so. And if we need to pivot to one of the other bigger ticket items because it's just not going to work out from Padilla, I think we should be able to ultimately sign 3 or 4 players in this signing period, with one of them being a pretty big ticket item, which I think would be a pretty respectable performance here in international amateur free agency. And we've simmed a couple of days ahead. Padilla, Rohel, as well as Ramos and Valladares all said they liked our initial offers, as you would expect. But now Padilla and Rohel have both come back and said that they're looking for more money. So have to revisit things with the 2 of them right now. I think we have enough money at this point that we can probably remain in the mix for both Padilla and Rohel. See exactly what they're looking for. Padilla says it's only $2.8 million. But he wants 4.6 now. We can't quite get there at this point. So it may be time to move on from him. And then the young pitcher, Rohel, thought we might be able to get for 150. Wonder what he's looking for now. 260. Let's see if we can get him for 250. No, he really wants the 260. All right, we'll meet the demand, get that offer back out there to him. And then I think we're going to pivot from Padilla to one of the other big-time players for the big money that we've have. We've still got about $3.5 million left that we can spend on somebody else at this point. And Jorge Moreno is a lefty bat that's just incredibly impressive. The number for him is supposedly $2.4 million. I don't think we're going to get him for that. Actually, it says $2.2 million. We may try to offer him 2.4 and just see if we can land him right now. So we'll get an offer out to Moreno. We're going to move on from Padilla at this point because he looks like he's quickly heading up towards that 4.75 million mark or somewhere in the neighborhood. And we're trying to be a bit more creative in the international amateur free agents this year and hopefully end up with good quality but also a little bit of quantity. All right, and we've got one player signed, Frank Ramos, who we had made that pretty low offer to, $130,000. Again, I don't know whether he's really going to become a major league catcher, but we love the personality, love the potential glove, love the durability. Let's just hope that there's something in there in terms of the offensive ability that we haven't quite figured out yet. Moreno says he's looking for more money now. Let's see exactly how much more money he's looking for and see if we need to pivot anywhere at this point. Padilla, we've moved on from. Rohel and Valladares still supposedly favor the offers that we've put out there. So Moreno, we can go up to 3.56. I don't know whether that's going to get it done now. Let's see what he's looking for. 4.2. I don't think we can get there, but don't worry. We're going to pivot to Jesus Ramirez, and this is a guy who we only have an average relationship with him, only average scouting accuracy. League interest is very high, but the number is only $1.5 million, and he's got a real interesting potential bat, durable. He's listed as a second baseman. I don't know where we actually play him and feel good about it with those type of ratings, but quite honestly, with that bat, I don't care. He can't really be an outfielder. 6 foot, he's not an optimal first baseman. But if you have to play that bat, if it completely develops at DH, I'm totally fine with that. So he says he's looking for 1.4. We're going to go up to 1.5 and just try to. Actually, we're going to go to 1.6 and just see if we can get him signed before anyone else even jumps in. And we've got some good news and some bad news. We've gotten Jorge Valladares signed. That was the guy that we made, I think, an offer of $800,000 to, which was less than what he was looking for. Yeah, $800,000 bonus. So this, I think, is a really interesting signing for not a ton of money. And then we also got the starting pitcher, Juan Rogel, who's really going to ultimately be a reliever, signed as well, to do that $260,000 bonus. So we've got 3 guys signed now. We just don't have a big ticket item signed. And Juan Padilla and Jorge Moreno have both signed. See where they ended up going for. Padilla ended up going for $6.2 million. So the Marlins obviously had more money than the limit to spend. So we were never going to beat them. And Jorge Moreno ended up going for $5.7 million. So kind of good that we jumped out of the bidding on both of those, because we were never going to be able to get over 4.75. Jesus Ramirez says he's looking for Philadelphia, leaning towards them. We've got 3 guys signed now, so we can throw every penny that we have at him. And he's only looking for $3.2 million, and we've got a little bit more than that. I'm going to go strong right at him right now and offer him every penny that we can. Since we've got 3 other players signed, if we can bring him on board, 3.56 is as high as we can go. It's about $360,000. Actually, it's exactly $360,000 more than he's looking for right now. Maybe there's a chance that we just blow him away with that offer and we can get him off of the open market. And as we get close to the preseason starting in 4 days on the 28th, put a little more into our scouting and development budgets. Preseason is when sometimes ownership can change the budget on you depending on how the off-season is gone. Still would consider throwing out an offer to Moncada or Rizzo, but their demands haven't come down all that much yet. Doesn't seem like there's huge markets for either of them. And again, if we move Wells to first base, don't know that we really need either of them. So I'm also kind of fine having this be a real quiet off season for us as far as free agent signings, and just head into the season when we are expecting to contend with a fair amount of money to potentially take on contracts as we get closer to the trade deadline. So I don't think we're in a bad spot, even though we haven't done a heck of a lot in free agency. You know, we made those trades that I talked about, and haven't done too much besides that because Higgy may not even make the team. So right now my focus is seeing if we can get a 4th international amateur free agent signed. And right now Ramirez favors our offer. If we can get him signed for every little last cent that we have, I'll feel real good with the package of 4 international free agents that we ended up with. But obviously the big domino in Ramirez is yet to fall. And we shot our shot with Ramirez. Doesn't look like it's going to work. He says St. Louis is offering him more, so I don't think we can we can't top that $4.6 million. So we just can't get there. So we're going to have to go in a different direction. Fortunately, there are still levers for us to press, and third baseman Nelson Del Rio is a guy we've got a strong relationship with, high scouting accuracy. League interest on him is high, so no guarantees that we're going to get him done. Like the personality, really like the bat. Not as high-end as some of those other high-end guys that we've swung and missed on, but certainly would be a player who could play third base or first base at the major league level. Guess we could play him in left field, but I really wouldn't want to. But not a bad fallback option compared to some of the other big ticket guys that we've thought about. Still have a few other players that we know reasonably well, Jorge Robledo and Edgar Olmos, a couple of first basemen out there. In the big picture, Alexis Morello, who we've got a very strong relationship with, is still out there. I think he becomes a reliever, and I don't love the personality. But if he is still available and we do end up striking out with Nelson Del Rio, I think that that would be the next guy that we pivot to. But right now, he's looking for $3.68 million. Ooh, so he might already be out of our price range. Most we can offer him is $3.56. I thought we had a chance there. All right, I'm going to pivot to the pitcher at this point then, see what Morello's looking for. Oh, he's got an offer greater than our remaining bonus pool, so going to have to pivot a little bit in what we do. Juan Riverol is a guy that we scouted. Don't love him, but it may be the time to kind of go more quantity than quality, but we don't totally have to do that yet because we've still got the first baseman that I talked about. Edgar Olmos, don't love him, the personality, lack of defense. We scouted him early and then we stopped bringing him into our camp. But Jorge Robledo may not be a bad fallback. Good personality, not much defensively, but potentially great contact and plus home run power. Not the worst fallback in the world, and he's supposedly only looking for $500,000. We'll see whether that's actually accurate or not. Yeah, now he says he wants $1.54 million, so we'll offer him 1.6. Get an offer out there to him. And we're going to just throw out a few other offers right now. We're going to miss out on the high-end players. We may have flown too close to the sun as we were trying to thread the needle here and bring on multiple players as well as one big player. We've got the multiple players figured out, but we may miss out on the one big player this year. But sometimes you got to swing for the fences. I don't love Juan Riverol, but how much is he actually looking for at this point? $2.4 million. Okay. Good luck, Juan. We're going to move on from you also. And as the preseason begins, no change to our budget, so it actually ended up going down from a year ago, which I don't love given the success that we've had the 2 years with the team, but it is what it is at this point. We do have if I could look at what I'd like to, we do have the offer out there to Robledo. He likes our offer. We'll wait to hear back from him and see what we can end up pulling together here in international amateur free agency. And we did end up getting Robledo signed, so that's good. We've got 4 players signed, and I like them all for various reasons, and we've still got some money left. Now we are getting to the point where I just don't know what we're going to be able to do in international amateur free agency because we've got less than $2 million left to spend. But when I look through what we've done, Robledo is a potentially interesting major league bat, good leadership. You know, he's a DH or a first baseman, can't even really play him in the outfield. But the bat with Robledo could be interesting. Pitcher Rahel could be a interesting reliever for us, and we didn't spend a ton of money on him. Got the catcher Ramos, again, potentially great defense, great personality, durability. The only question with him is the bat. And then last but not least, we signed the right fielder Valadares, who looks like he could be a pretty interesting bat. So we don't have a superstar, but we've got two interesting bats and a catcher and a outfielder and a first baseman. We've got a potentially really good reliever, and we've got a potentially excellent defensive catcher. The only question is whether the guy can hit. So we've swung and missed at the big ticket items, but I do feel like we've added to the overall talent of our organization. And as I said, we've still got close to $2 million to spend. So between now and our next episode, I'm going to play around and kind of dig deep, see if there's a diamond in the rough among these players that we just haven't scouted as well and don't know as well. I mean, right here, Juan Oliva, like the power, like the fact that he can walk, not horrible defensively. Just don't know if he's ever going to hit enough. But we'll be looking for if there's anything interesting in terms of the potential of some of these lower rated guys. Another guy here, Kai Sinner, German. Another guy with really potentially good home run power and eye, good personality in the clubhouse. Don't think he's ever going to hit enough to be a major leaguer, but there might still be something out there for us to think about, or we can always try to throw a Hail Mary with the $1.96 million is, whoever we think is the best player of the ones who are left. So interested in hearing what your strategies have been around international amateur free agency and the games that you've played in the comments. Like I said, I feel good that we've got 4 players signed. Do I wish that we had spent this last $2 million and we had a bigger player than one of the 4 that we signed with the other 3? Yeah, I do, but you're not going to be successful every time. And as you can see, there have been a lot of teams that had well above the $4.75 million that we did, and teams like the Marlins and the A's have spent every penny of it. Even the Royals have spent more than we could possibly match. So I don't think we've done a horrible job. Don't think we've done a great job. Would love to know the approach that others are using to international amateur free agency. So we've still got some decisions to make. As I said, we'll sign an international amateur free agent or 2 additionally, hopefully. And we still got some money to spend as we approach spring training. So if you've got ideas on who, if anyone, we should chase after among the free agents, would love to hear that as well. Rizzo, Moncada still out there. I don't think we really need a Nick Ahmed, although I'd love that glove at shortstop. Orlando Arcia. Be a useful utility infielder for us, but just not a huge area of need. Looking at the pitchers, Buehler is still out there. His demand is higher, but I'm assuming he still doesn't want to play for Aaron. Actually, he's interested. I guess the market hasn't developed quite as you thought it would, Mr. Buehler, has it? Very interesting. How much money do we have? $11.197 million. And all of a sudden, Walker Buehler. Here on February 3rd, all of a sudden, Aaron Boone's not such a big jerk to play for since you're unemployed. My, how the turntables have turned, Mr. Walker Buehler. We will offer you a 2-year deal. But that 2nd-year deal is going to be a team option for us in case you are real effective. We've got another guy who can be a big member of our starting rotation next year. And potentially, since Nestor Cortez is going to be a free agent, give us a cost-effective alternative there. I'd prefer the bonus to be a little smaller if you pitch 160 innings, but if you get to 160 innings, that means you're healthy and probably reasonably effective. Hey, if you win a Cy Young Award, we will pay you. So he wanted $11 million for 1 year. We're offering him an average of 10.5 million for 2 years with that second-year team option. I don't know whether he'll go for this. He really just wants the 1 year, $11 million deal. All right, we'll meet your demand. We've got an offer out there to Walker Buehler, basically for just about all the money that we potentially have left at this point. Clearly, before spring training, we could still move from scouting or development if we needed to. But that'll give us something to think about between now and our next episode. Would love to hear your thoughts on Walker Buehler down below as well. As I said, when I think about our rotation right now, I really love the top three of Rodon, Cole, and Severino. Cortez I don't love as much, and then Dre Jameson. I really like him, but he's a fourth or fifth starter. Yuendrys Gomez is a guy for the future, but if we can get Buehler signed, I think he would slot in as our fourth starter, move Cortez to the fifth spot, and then we've got Jameson and Gomez and potentially even Davy Garcia in the organization as potential guys who could start if we had injuries. So I think that would be a really nice signing for us if we're able to get it done. Obviously, I wouldn't have made the offer if I didn't think that was the case. But again, would love to hear your thoughts on what we've done in international free agency and the trades we talked about at the beginning of the episode, and most recently in this offer we made for Walker Buehler in the comments. And we will be back at some point with our next episode. Until then, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.